All right. So I am starting to record on Audacity. I'll start recording here in StreamYard. All right. And just like for introduction purposes, what's a good way to introduce you? Like biologist or breeder, or how would you identify?
I've never thought this through that much. Animal educator works pretty well.
Okay.
Tarantula breeder, retired musician, Twitch streamer. I wear a lot of hats, mostly to stave off boredom in the lockdown.
Yeah, I understand.
I swear this lockdown has like quadrupled my tarantula collection.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of people. I've actually stopped buying tarantulas during the lockdown, just kind of focused on what I have.
I think I need to stop because I'm starting to run out of room.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem I'm having. All right, so I'm going to, oops, I'll do that. Which button is it? Okay, this one. There we go. All right, so I will introduce you and bring you on. Just making sure I have the right sound queued up. Welcome to the Exotic Pet Collective. My name is Richard, and today we've got an exciting guest on the podcast. If this is your first time, I upload podcasts every Thursday and also have a main YouTube channel called the Tarantula Collective where you can find videos every Tuesday and Friday. I think I screwed that up. If this is your first time listening, my name is Richard. I'm from the Tarantula Collective. I upload new podcasts every Thursday, and then main channel I upload Mondays and Fridays. So thanks for joining. On today's podcast, we will be talking about all kinds of things arachnid related. And we've got a special guest. This is Jade. You may know her from her YouTube channel, Sky Spiders. So welcome to the channel, or welcome to the podcast, everyone. This is Jade.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It is nice having you.
Always a pleasure. Been enjoying your channel for quite a while.
Well, thank you. Now, you are here in the United States, correct?
Yeah, I'm in New York State.
And how's the weather out there right now? You guys getting hit pretty bad?
It's pretty much what we always get up here. Lots of snow, lots of cold.
Right on.
I enjoy it, though. I'm originally from Florida, so...
No way. Where in Florida?
Orlando.
Oh, okay. I lived in Daytona Beach for like 8 years.
Oh, nice.
Not too far away. So can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
That's definitely a big bag of worms. I'm open about being autistic, gay. Used to be a musician till a doctor screwed up my hand, and just turned my tarantula hobby into a potential new career. Went back to college, started working on my graduate degree in spiders. My focus was avicularinae. I'm a big pink toe junkie. I do a lot of educational outreach in my area, work with the local zoo. Before the lockdown, used to give lectures and show off all kinds of animals to little kids in school. And then just in my free time, I play Magic the Gathering on Twitch.
Okay, right. So you're a Twitch streamer. You got a YouTube channel. Now, on your new YouTube channel, do you focus mainly on arachnids and spiders and stuff like that, or is it just kind of whatever?
It's a combination of my critters and my hobby of Magic the Gathering.
Right on. So you said you went to school and you were studying like arachnids, arachnology, or what exactly? Like, how did that all come about?
It's complicated because there's no real like. It's hard to find a school that focuses on arachnids. So when you're going for a degree like that, it's usually just put under the umbrella term entomology. But yeah, I started with biology programs, just as general as could be, then focused in on zoology, and then finally focused in even more on entomology and then specifically spiders.
I gotcha. And you said you had a penchant. You favored the pink-toed tarantulas.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a soft spot for them. I don't know if it's just the way they strut when they walk, but
Yeah.
they hooked me in pretty quick.
Yeah, they seem to be one of those spiders that, I mean, pretty much any pet shop I go to has a pink toe tarantula for sale. It seems like everybody, I think that was my first arboreal tarantula, was a pink toe. And at one point, I got hooked into this cycle of constantly, like every time I'd go, I'd see a pink toe, at Petco or PetSmart or whatever, and I'd be like, I'm gonna rescue it, and I would buy it, I'd bring it home, go back next week to get some more crickets. There'd be another one, so I'd buy that
Yep.
one. It was a point I had like 8 or 9 avicularias. Like it was like this is getting out of hand.
I mean, they come in every color and pattern, and I mean, when you've got versicolors under
Mm.
your branch and Celedonia, it's like, how can you not fall in love with that? Like, I just don't understand when I hear people talk about them and like, oh, they're too girly a tarantula. I don't want to keep those, or oh, they're boring. Like, they're pretty awesome considering they're the only group in tarantulas that we really do in the hobby that's not Theraphosidae.
Yeah, it's very true. I really enjoyed. I'm actually doing a video, a collaboration video with Tarantula Cat and I can't remember who else you said was going to be on there. Reptiliatus and Petco and a few other people, all about avicularia. Can I show them the different ways that we all set them up?
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
it's a controversial, not a controversial, but there's been a lot of bad information on avicularia.
Yes.
It seems like it's one of those species that it should be a beginner species. They're very docile and easy to take care of, but I mean, for years it seemed like so many of them were just randomly dying, and they came up with the what do they call that? Sudden avic death syndrome or something
Yep.
like that. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So I mean, how do you keep your avicularia? Give us some insight on how you do that.
Well, I gotta say, I've been doing this for, God, I'm really dating myself here, 22 years or so, and I had a lot of SADs at the beginning. I followed all that advice where they say high humidity and give them big open spaces, and the stuff I do now, I worry more about ventilation. I take, for the little ones, I use tattoo ink caps. And for my larger ones, I just use like disposable, basically what we keep our spiderlings in, the little condiment containers.
Yeah.
And I'll glue those up in the top of the enclosure for water dishes. So they've always got their access to water. Again, the ventilation's the big part. I put holes near the bottom at ground level on the front and then toward the top and the back. So the air moves through in a current that refreshes the entire enclosure. Just mist once a week. And honestly, I haven't had a spiderling die in maybe 10 years now.
Very cool. That's very similar to how I keep mine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly not as hard as everyone makes it out to be. It's just making sure you've got ventilation that clears up the entire enclosure. You're not just refreshing one part of it.
Yeah, I actually just rehoused my avicularia, one of them, into one of the Exoterra. Oh, I can never small, tall enclosures, like 12 by 12 by 18. It does have that kind of cross ventilation with the vents in the front and then the vents on top. Get some good circulation. And what I do when I'm using a larger enclosure like that is I put just a large water dish in the bottom of the enclosure. Because as that evaporates, I find that it really helps keep the humidity at a good level in there without the air getting too stagnant. But I had seen, this was months ago, I don't know whatever came of it, but I'd seen some posts online. There was a few guys, actually I don't know if they were male, but there was a couple people that were talking about experimenting with a different way, kind of a different theory of how to keep avicularias. I don't know if you saw this, but essentially what they were planning to do was no substrate and not even a water dish. But they were using enclosure kind of like an Exoterra, arboreal enclosure, and just filling the bottom with water. So it would just have a couple inches of water, and because they were observing that their avicularies never really went down to the ground at all, so they didn't need the substrate, and having that water would do it would really help kind of keep the humidity up without like getting stagnant, or at least without having to worry with mold and stuff like that when you have damn substrate.
Yeah, it's
And they
definitely
got
interesting.
yeah, I thought it was interesting as well, and they got eviscerated because you know how the tarantula hobby can be. You try something new,
Yeah.
nobody likes that. It's
Oh my god. I still
very
remember back in the day on arachno boards.
yeah.
God, I think I was member number 7 on that board. I'm not far into it at this point. But everyone was talking about communal keeping avicularia. And everyone thought they had the right idea, but no one was really posting actual info of how it went. So I was like, you know what? I'm curious, and I've got the stuff available to do this on the cheap. So I took a 55-gallon terrarium that I had, set it up with cork hides, like dozens of them, all kinds of live plants, plastic plants, pretty much a paradise for pink toes. And through, God, how many was it? It was either 8 or 10. I forget how many exactly. And at the end of it, I ended up with 2 very large females, both gravid, and nothing else. And I posted all my results, had this super detailed thread, all kinds of photos, and I swear I still see every year now another person trying exactly the same thing and getting the exact same results. And then everyone's like, oh, but they're more tolerant. We can keep these communally. Like all this works fine, and it's just so funny to see it over and over again after putting forth the effort and putting the results out there, that they still doubt it and want to try it. I'm not getting any of your audio, by the way.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. I was doing some research about 5 or 6 years ago. It was actually when it may not have been that long ago. It was whenever I was just starting my YouTube channel. So it was a couple of years ago, I guess. I was, just trying to get some additional information on avicularia. It was one of the first videos that I did. And I came across this old video on YouTube that had hundreds of thousands of views of this guy keeping avicularia communally in a very large enclosure. I mean, like, larger than any enclosure that I have. Like, it's something that you would keep, like, I don't even know what you would keep in it. Some kind of large reptile.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably like 36 inches high or something. Massive 2-door glass enclosure. And he had 2 or 3 avicularias in there. It's just, really tight. And it looked really cool. And there was a lot of webbing. And, but, I never saw any follow-up video about how they were doing. So I kind of assumed that they ended up, some cannibalism took place there.
Two or three in a space that big might function, but again, I'd want to see the results.
Yeah, and that was the thing, is I had seen a lot of people talking about experimenting keeping them communally, and then you never see any updates. So pretty much anytime I see somebody doing that, I'm like, okay, apparently it didn't go well, because they're not bragging about how well it's going.
Yeah, I think back to the Dark Den video where he got the Neoholotheliensis and tried to keep them communally, and then he was down to, like, what, I think 1 or 2 of each color.
Yeah, it's always sad seeing that, because it's really a cool concept to be able to keep multiple tarantulas in one enclosure. Like, I actually have a Monocentrophus balfouri communal right above my head here.
Oh yeah,
and they're doing really well. But I started out with 4 and I'm down to 3 in the communal, but it wasn't cannibalized. I think it just had a bad molt, or
yep.
I don't know what happened. It looked like it had come out of its web tunnels and like was just on the side of the enclosure, laying on its back like it was about to molt. And I don't know if one of the other Balfouris disturbed it or something mid-molt, but it ended up dying. It's kind of heartbreaking.
I've had the exact same results in mine where like 1 or 2 will just randomly die. But I think the fact those can be kept communally is why that species has gotten to become so popular so quickly.
Yeah.
Because they weren't even in the hobby 5 years ago, I don't think.
And they're still, relatively expensive for tarantulas. It's expensive to have a communal, and can be financially devastating when it starts going wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to something like the Neotheliensis, the possibility of keeping those communally, because they're the price tag on them, at least here in the U.S., is definitely cheaper. It seems to be a lot more of them available, and I think it'd be awesome if it could be kept communally. But I've rarely seen anybody talk about it being successful.
Yeah,
Just like
I've never seen a successful one.
yeah, it seems like it always ends badly, but people keep trying it. But what I was saying earlier is that I think a part of the reason people keep trying to keep Avicularias communally is because there's a couple of websites out there and a couple of YouTube videos that are very popular, or at least they've been around for a while, gotten a lot of hits, so the algorithm will suggest them. And if you just type in Avicularia communal, it's probably the first video that pops up. So people see that and get excited, and then it's like, well, it doesn't matter what you have to say. The recent information is not enough to kind of settle down somebody that's extremely excited at the concepts. They just gotta, some people have to touch the stove to realize that it's hot. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if I need to like do my experiment all over again with a new group of them and make a YouTube video out of it.
Yeah, that's like the downside of social media, especially YouTube, is that it doesn't always give you the best information or the most recent information. It's just like the most popular information based off what it is you're searching for.
I think I saw Tarantula Cat do a video on that where she pulled up this guy that's like sponges in the water dishes and just all the worst stuff you can imagine. Like put him in a 10-gallon with like an inch of substrate and
yeah. Junkie Bob or something like that. It's his name. I mean, that's one of the first videos if you just search how to care for a tarantula or a pet tarantula or something, that's the first thing that pops up. It's got millions of views and it's like 10 years, maybe 12 years old. It's an old video, but it's the first one in a Google search usually that pops up as well. So it just seems like the old information, the bad information is just a lot more easily accessible than, I think it was I was talking to Pet Rock and Roll, Amy. She's over in the UK, and right now she is hosting the Fatal Fangs. It's like a tarantula feeding competition with a whole bunch of channels. I think there's 64 channels that are involved in that. And when she was talking about it, because I'm one of the judges for it, that she was mentioning all these tarantula channels that I didn't even know were out there. It's like I thought I knew all the tarantula channels, and just searching tarantula videos on YouTube, none of those channels ever came up. And it's not because they're bad content or anything. It's just they're not breaking through the algorithm. You got to go through like 200 exotic slayer videos before you find one that's a smaller channel.
My stuff I've been doing for 2.5 years now, and like some of my magic videos, I'm lucky to see 100 views on them.
Yeah, it's difficult breaking through that algorithm. Like I couldn't even tell you how many hours, tens, hundreds of hours I've spent optimizing search engine, results and tags.
I don't have the patience for that anymore. I'm getting too old for that stuff.
It's so frustrating. So you said you're on Twitch as well. Do you ever do any tarantula content on Twitch?
I've thought about doing it. The problem with doing tarantulas live is there's a lot of downtime, because they may not react right away, or you're moving enclosures around, getting the right angles. I might try it someday, but I'm more likely to do something like put some tarantula content into like a PowerPoint file, so I can like jump between videos quickly and then just do it like I'm doing regular Twitch streaming on my laptop. Just something a little more simple to remove that variable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not really all that familiar with Twitch. I've never streamed on it or anything like that. I don't even think I've ever watched a Twitch live stream before. But I've gotten a lot of people recently that have been suggesting, saying I should get on Twitch.
I mean, it's definitely a big place. Lots of eyes on your content there.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if you're doing like live streaming, you're playing games and stuff like that. I understand. I just don't know how I could do tarantulas on Twitch, because a lot of it is, it takes me hours sometimes just to get, 10 minutes of footage.
Oh yeah.
Spend a lot of time just filming tarantulas not moving. So I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, that and your videos you get are some of the better looking ones I've ever seen on YouTube.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But
Like I can tell you've probably had a photography background at some point in the past. Like you
a
actually
lot of
look like
people
you know
say
what you're
that.
doing.
But I never owned a camera until a couple years ago.
Oh
I
wow.
started the channel with I had a Samsung Galaxy S7 or something like that, and just started recording it that way. And then, well, I guess I had been doing it for a few months, 6 months, something like that. And a friend of mine gave me an old used Lumix G7 kind of mirrorless camera. So I started learning that, and that was my first camera I ever owned, like actual camera. So I just started watching YouTube videos on how to use it and how to record video, and just spend a couple hours every day, maybe like an hour every day would be more reasonable. Just learning how to use the camera and shoot video and stuff like that, and just
No,
get a lot of
that's
practice.
awesome to hear. Actually, you've got a really good eye for it. Then
Well, thank you, appreciate that. So there was something I was going to ask you about avicularia. How familiar are you with? Like I have a couple of species in my collection. I have a Vicularia bronus and what is it? I don't even know how to pronounce it. Vicularia bronus, and it's a Vicularia now. Like there was a lot of like the metallic pink toe and some of those other species that all got moved into the Vicularia species. I mean, were you following that whole name change at all, or can you tell us exactly what happened there?
this is kind of complicated for me.
Okay.
So I moved up to New York about 6, 7 years ago to work on my graduate degree, and the project I was working on was reclassifying avicularia. Like we all admit, it was an absolute mess before it got reclassified. Not that what happened improved things, but like my big goal, like I wanted to earn my degree by renaming my favorite spider, which is the versicolor. Problem is, I ended up at a college that didn't want to honor disability accommodations.
Okay.
Just simple things like since I can't use my right hand, I needed a note taker and I needed to be able to type for exams and quizzes and stuff. And
Hmm.
like just little things like that, they had trouble with. Or like I had a major abdominal surgery and I'm on bed rest, but they want me to hike 20 miles and never give me the notes from the lab I missed because I can't do the hike. Little things like that. So because I was fighting all these things all the years I was there, I didn't get to actually finish my project. And this other person working on it, we were working at the same time and didn't know the other person was doing this. They published first, so they got to reclassify everything.
Yeah.
And we had similar ideas of what what our end goal was
Okay.
and what the data was showing us, but they named everything very different from how I would have called it. So not only have I already done all this research, I now have to relearn the research all over again for what they've renamed things.
Yeah.
So I'm always getting like doubly confused over what the hell everything is now, because I've got what I worked on for several years, and then okay, here's what someone else did, and now I've got to learn theirs.
Yeah. I get that. People send me questions a lot of the time. Wanting to, they're asking about the metallic pink toe, and I wish I could remember how to pronounce it. It's literally in the enclosure behind me, but I don't want to walk over there. But it was a Vicularia Bronahez, and Wowie, something like that. That's not even close. But I had posted a picture of it a couple of years, or like right after that, the big reclassification had happened, and was quickly told in the comments that it is now just a Vicularia, like morph type 4 or something. And I started, kind of looking into all the different morph types, and I just didn't care enough. I think is the problem. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. That's just there small details that are distinguishing all the different morphs, and I just haven't really got into it and really kind of delved into it. So I don't have that knowledge. But I knew that they had switched the Carabiner Versicolor It renamed that one, and there was another avicularia that got reclassified, but it is escaping me.
Ebrapora diversipes was another one.
That's Yep. Yeah.
Another one I was hoping to name.
Yeah. What would you have named it?
Honestly, I'm not going to muddle everything up with where I was
Okay.
going with it at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean,
So
like I breed avicularia on the regular.
yeah.
Like Fear Not probably still has some of my spiderlings from last year.
Oh, no.
But even I think it's still a gigantic mess and overly complicated. Honestly, everything that's in the Avicularia variegata or Avicularia avicularia with the morph types,
Mm-hmm.
they all have overlapping habitat and they interbreed with each other in the wild. They're still fertile when they interbreed. So they are basically they're the same species. Like it's more complex than that, but I
Yeah.
mean that's the quick and dirty version of it. Like if you can
So
understand that much, you've basically got it.
yeah. So when they're determining the different species, especially in a genus that's so closely related, I mean, are they doing like DNA type analysis to determine that they're different species, or are there like physical attributes, or is it just like whatever the kind of color and pattern that they have? I mean, what distinguishes the different species or different morph types?
There's a few different ways to do it, and it's usually a combination of everything. There's morphotype analysis where you're going to look at all the different physical characteristics, like this one has additional hairs on this leg joint, or this one's mating clasper is a slightly different shape. You're looking for things like that. Then you're also doing the DNA analysis and looking for clusters of where there are gaps in different groups of DNA to delineate species. The problem with the Vicularia in there is you're going to have a lot of in-between ones as well. Some people start looking at the color difference, but a lot of that is just regional variation in a lot of cases. But it's a little bit of everything put together,
Yeah.
although it's mostly DNA nowadays.
So what got Carabina reclassified to a completely different genus?
I think a lot of that is down to geographical isolation. All of those are island species for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the Avicularia are like mainland South America, Central America type things.
Gotcha. Very cool. So what kind of tarantulas do you keep other than Avicularia? Or is that pretty much all you have?
I keep a little bit of everything.
Do you?
Old world, new world. I don't keep many burrowers. I'm just not a fan of pet dirt.
Yeah.
But I've got like assassin bugs, isopods, true spiders, harvestmen, scorpions. I mean, I've got a scorpion U-bred, actually. The ones you sent over to Fear Not, like 6 months back. Which, by the way, were not communal for me.
No, not
When I
until
finally
they're
put them
adult.
all together, I just ended up with one fat one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
there's
think,
another argument against communal.
Alex did that as well. Like I have a communal right here, but they're only really communal when they're adults.
Yep.
Like you put them together when they're little squirplings or even juveniles, they'll end up eating each other. But the adults have been. I mean, I got 7 of them in an enclosure, and they're doing too good actually. I just was looking at it before I started the podcast with you, and I got another female with a bunch of squirplings on her back.
Oh, nice.
I've got another 30 of them, and I still have probably about 80 or 100 different baby scorpions in my nursery at the moment. So I'm getting overrun by scorpions right now.
One
So,
of my parthenogenics is about to drop, so I feel ya.
yeah. So that's a night I get to try to get her out of the communal and in her own enclosure, because I've noticed if you don't, then they end up picking those babies off, like the other scorpions in the communal, and
jeez.
eating them off her back. So I definitely don't want, I know if they end up moving off her back, they're probably not going to last long.
Yeah.
Either eat each other or get eaten pretty quickly. So I'm usually like to separate them until they crawl off the back, and then pull them all out, put them in their own little tiny deli cup enclosures. And yeah, they're really cool, but I'm getting sick of all of the babies. So I may break the communal up here in a little while, because it's, nobody really wants them. It's like I sent those to Fear Not because I didn't know what to do with them. I couldn't find anybody, and Tanya was like, "Yeah, I'll take them." So I
Yeah,
sent
she's
her
always
kind of
been good about taking my extra stuff.
yeah, yeah. And so I was actually gonna send some more to her. I guess it was the end of November, something like that. But she was really busy opening up the new store, so we kept delaying it. Then the weather was bad, so now I just am taking care of all these baby squirrelings, waiting for the
Yep.
weather to break so I can send her a
And
huge
like they're
box.
not bad if you can keep them together. It's
Yeah,
when they're all individual containers that's when they become annoying.
yeah. I mean, it just takes a couple hours just pulling them all out of the nursery, set them on the table, opening the lids, feeding them,
Hmm.
watering them, putting it all back. It's quite a hassle. Um,
But yeah, the little experience with trying to get them to live together, which by the way was in a much larger enclosure than I would have normally done. Like we're
yeah,
talking like an 18-inch high Exoterra,
yeah.
and they still were all gone in like 3 days.
Wow,
But
that's
that
wild.
experience, like I was about to order some Death Stalkers to keep communally, and I was like,
Hmm.
you know what? I'm just gonna get a female to breed with my male when they're both mature, and I'm not gonna keep them together. I learned my lesson.
Yeah,
Like other than
I've
my
got
emperors, I don't keep scorpions communally.
yeah. See, I haven't tried that with emperors or Asian forest, but the communal I have is the Florida bark scorpions, and then also the Arizona striped bark scorpions, and then just the regular Arizona bark scorpions. Those are the three scorpion communals I have, and like they're all adults. There's like between 4 to 7 in each one, and they're doing well. They're breeding. I did notice that the Arizona striped bark scorpion had some cannibalism in it, and I think that's just because of the way I had it set up. Usually, like all the other two communals, I have like multiple pieces of cork bark kind of leaned up
Hmm.
against the side of the enclosure. That one I just had one large piece, so I think there may have been some territorial issues in there. So if I'm going to do that one again, I'm going to change up the way I laid it out. But other than that, those have been doing well. But yeah, Alex had told me that his had that he ended up with just one large fat scorpion, and I was like, I'm sorry, man. I thought I made that clear that you have to wait till they're adults. But
For
yeah,
mine, I thought they were mature and they weren't.
oh
So
yeah,
that's all it was. I mismeasured the size.
yeah, that happens.
But you're talking about the multiple hides. Like my emperors, I gave them multiple hides. Like I think six hides
Mhm.
for two scorpions, and they're always under the same one together.
Yeah,
So I just finally just took out all but one
yeah.
because
That's
that's all
kind
they're
of how
going to
my
use.
Florida barks are. I mean, just looking at it right now, there's four of them on one large piece of cork bark, but I got two other vertical pieces of cork bark in there. Even though they don't use it very much, I think like when they get irritated with each other or need some space, they can quickly retreat and kind of be out of each other's hair in those situations. So I mean, I rarely see them using like right now the scorpion with all the babies on her back is on the farthest piece of cork bark away from everybody else. She's really kind of isolated herself, from the rest of the communal, which kind of makes it easy to identify when she's pregnant.
Yes.
But you said you keep in some assassin bugs. Do you have like the Horde King or the White Spotted, or what do you have?
I have three species. I do have Cytala horrida, which are amazing.
Yeah.
I thought I had two of the same gender left because I wasn't getting any babies for the longest time. And then, like 2 weeks ago, I just started seeing babies everywhere.
Oh
So
wow.
thankfully, that colony is going strong. I've got the white spotteds,
Hmm.
which I think I'm sitting at around like 20, 25 of those right now.
Okay.
And I just picked up P. Labicolus, which is just a larger red spot one. I actually won those at an auction on Facebook just randomly, and those are actually becoming pretty awesome. Just like another species I didn't even know existed. But I've
Very.
been doing those for about a year now, and just I've fallen in love with them. They're so fun to watch swarm, like
Yeah.
fighting over food and just
But
really cool animals.
I have a Horde King and the White Spotted. Both kind of I'm keeping communally. The White Spotteds are doing really well. I think I've got maybe like 8 or 9 of them in there. Maybe a month or so ago, I noticed a bunch of babies crawling around. But the Horde Kings, I have not gotten any babies, and I'm down to just one. I think I had
Oh
five of
wow.
them originally, and they just slowly over the past few years have just kind of like has it been 2 years, 18 months, something like that. It's been at least a year.
Like I
I mean,
know a
it
lot of
wasn't.
us are still learning the husbandry for these, but it's starting to seem like they're seasonal breeders because I'm
Okay.
seeing everybody talking about how they're getting babies all of a sudden. And with my Harita, I was keeping them more humid, but I'm noticing now they like it on the dry side with just a water dish to drink from. I've actually seen them drinking from it, which I wasn't expecting. But that's what I found working. And I also keep them with dairy cow isopods to
Hmm.
clean up any of the bodies they don't finish because they leave quite a mess.
Yes, they do.
But the combination of all of that seems to have worked really well on my end.
Do you keep no, what kind of enclosure do you have them in?
I just have them in an 8-inch acrylic cube with vertical cork bark to climb on.
Okay. And what kind of
Substrate is
substrate?
a mix of peat moss, some aspen bedding, a little bit of sand, nothing too fancy.
Yeah. And you said you keep the substrate dry, give them a water dish. Do you use any kind of supplemental heat at all? Or just room?
Our bug room is about 83, 84 degrees in the winter,
Okay.
just because we're in a 2-story apartment, so all the heat goes up there.
Gotcha.
So our whole bug room is heated.
Nice. See, I keep mine in my basement, so it's I'm lucky if it hits 72 down here, which is fine for the tarantulas. But I was thinking maybe that had something to do with why my horde kings were not doing very well. But I
That
didn't
could
have,
be because I also raised them to the top shelf on my rack,
yeah,
and that's where they get the warmest. So that might
gotcha.
have something to do with it as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of bummed that I'm down to just one. I was actually thinking about ordering some more. Next reptile expo I go to, I was actually hoping to go to Tinley Park NARBC. That's where I got them last time, and I know there's usually a few people, a couple dealers there that will have them, but I'm not sure. I know it got postponed. It was supposed to be in March. I think they pushed it back to like June or July, and I just don't know if I'll be able to go now. But because it ended up when they originally it was going to be in March. It was the same weekend as my wife's cousin. Actually lives right outside Tinley Park, and was getting married that weekend. So I was like, perfect. Like,
Yeah, that works
I'll
out well.
definitely be in town. So yeah, but I guess since it got postponed, I don't know how that's going to work out.
You,
But
you
before I
could have
got more,
you could have
oh,
unlocked an
really?
achievement I haven't gotten yet, where it's bring tarantulas to a wedding.
Yeah, that would be pretty wild. But I wanted to make sure that I had their husbandry more dialed in better before I got more, because I don't want to. I just don't want to get more and let them die off as well. Like
Yeah,
that's not what I want to do.
one of
So
my
I've been asking a lot of people like how they keep theirs, trying to find some commonality.
friends up here, he's the one who actually gave me my Harita. He got them just randomly in a roach colony he bought,
Oh,
where they were there just picking off excess roaches. He had, I think, 3 immature and 1 mature, and he just was like, "Oh, I heard you wanted these, so here you go. I don't have any reason to keep them."
that's pretty
And
wild.
that's literally how mine started. But I mean, if they're doing good in a roach colony for, God, 5, 6 years.
Yeah. What do you feed your assassin bugs?
I've tried all the roaches that we breed,
Mm-hmm.
but they can't catch the red runners. They don't like the dubia. They don't like the lobster roaches. All the other ones we keep are pet species, and we finally just had to realize we have to go buy crickets every week for them.
Yeah,
Which
that's
I detest crickets. Like they just smell. It's so horrible.
they really do.
But yeah, that's all they'll eat for me anyway.
Yeah. I think I got a few of them to eat mealworms, but it was almost like I had to dangle it in front of them and let them strike it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this every week.
Yeah, I've done tweezer feeding with red runners before, and they'll take them that way.
Yeah.
But when you've got 30 in a colony, I'm not going to sit there for 2 hours and tweezer feed every one of them one at a time.
And when
Remember
they
who
have
got them and who didn't.
yeah. Now, do you separate the young like when they have babies, or do you just let them all stay in there together?
I've been letting them stay together, but depending on how it goes this time, I may start separating.
Gotcha.
But I've never had any losses of babies by keeping them with the adults.
Yeah. Yeah, I had noticed, I haven't checked in a few days, or probably a week. I haven't like really turned it over. But the issue I was having with the white spotted is the cork bark I use, where like they're kind of thick pieces of cork bark with a whole lot of large like holes, like knots in the wood.
Hmm.
So they would all like crawl way back in, deep
Oh,
into the
jeez.
cork bark. So I couldn't even see them. Come down late at night, shine a light on there, and I'd see a bunch of babies running around, but come back during the day, and there was none. So I knew they were all, going deep in there and hiding. And it was, I initially was going to separate them just because I wanted to make sure they survived. But I was like, there's no way I could get them out with all of the full grown assassin bugs walking. I was like, I'm going to get bit or something. So I was like, I'll just let them be, see how it goes. So I'm hoping it turns out well.
Yeah, a bite from those is not something I want to experience.
Yeah, me
Like
neither.
they're up there with centipedes for things I don't want to be bitten by.
Yeah.
Like I've taken one tarantula bite in all my
Okay.
years, and
What? How did you get bit?
dumbest thing possible while handling a versicolor and not letting it get away from me.
Ah,
Just a
nice.
little 2 inch or inch and a half spiderling or something.
Yeah,
Chomped down on the knuckle of my thumb.
yeah.
3 or 4 dry bites with my dumbass not noticing, and
Wow.
finally gave me an envenomated bite, and that was interesting.
Yeah. What kind of side effects did you feel?
Honestly, it was like a fire ant bite. It was just itchy and burned for a little while.
Oh, okay. Because I'd never been bit by a fire ant either. I managed to avoid that all my time in Florida. I was like,
I was gonna
nope.
say, I thought you lived in areas with them. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. I've managed to not get bit by fire ants or tarantulas or no, I can't say snakes anymore. The entire time I was in Florida, though, I was actually I worked for Tampa Electric Company, the Tico, but it was actually People's Gas. So my job was to walk around in the hot Florida sun and read gas meters.
Hmm.
That was like I got bit by a lot of dogs, and but never a snake, and had some pretty close calls. But
Oh,
that's kind of like part of what really amped up my appreciation for reptiles and arachnids was just being down there. And I'd always liked tarantulas, but it wasn't until I moved to Florida and had scorpions in the cat litter box and
hmm.
snakes all over the yard and like reptiles running through the house that it really started to develop a lot deeper appreciation for these things. And yeah, so and then I moved back up here. Actually, when I moved, I'm in West Virginia right now, and I moved from Daytona Beach up to West Virginia, packed like just threw everything in the back of a U-Haul. And one of the last things I loaded up was I can't even remember. It was some kind of like succulent tree that we had sitting outside the front door. Put that in the back of the U-Haul. Came up. It was October, I believe, um, and had already had an apartment set up. So we like, just pulled into town and then unloaded everything into the new apartment. And got a call from the landlord a few days later complaining about an infestation of lizards.
Oh, jeez.
And I noticed while we were unpacking, and there had to be a couple of dozen lizards living in that tree. So
That's
as
too
we were
funny.
driving, they were getting out, getting into all of our boxes and stuff. So you'd be opening up boxes, pulling out books, and one of those little anoles would take off running. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna catch it. It's like
I
I figured they'd die off.
I
It's
gotta say, like the one thing I miss the most about Florida from when I grew up there was just the anoles everywhere. Like, you
yeah,
can't go anywhere without hearing anoles like rushing all around you. And like they
yeah,
were just the coolest thing. Like I used to catch them as a kid and keep them as pets for short periods.
yeah. My cats loved them.
Oh yeah,
They're play toys.
they're the perfect
Uh,
size for cats to play with.
yeah.
But like between anoles and isopods and oh man, I've caught so many pet critters when I lived in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was out there reading meters, like I would always run into black widows because they seem to love making their webs around the actual gas meter, especially if it was in a box.
Oh yeah, they
And then
love human structures.
yeah, and then it always seemed to be some kind of rat snake, black snake, or
Hmm.
I didn't really run into a whole lot of venomous snakes, luckily. I mean, but they're usually just a really big black snakes or whatever they call them.
Usually, they call them black racers down there. I don't know what species that is.
Yeah, a lot of black racers. But I had one route for a while. It was almost like I don't think they were mobile homes. They were like modular homes.
Hmm.
You know, those kind of it just didn't look very sturdy. Like they're not going to last a hurricane, and they're all
Yeah.
around little lakes or ponds, like on a golf course. It's like a little retirement community full of old people, and it'd be a lot of snakes in the grass, and then signs everywhere, like I'm going behind the houses and stuff like that, reading meters, and it was like, "Watch out for the alligator." We just saw an alligator out in the pond,
Yep.
early this morning. I'm like, "Jeez, I am not going to survive this job."
Oh man, my uncles and my dad, when they were little kids, would bring home snakes and alligators and all kinds of stuff, and just try and keep it as a pet in the shed out back. And yeah, I've heard so many stories about pet alligators.
Yeah.
I mean, when
I
that's
never,
what's around you, I mean, why not?
yeah, I never brought any inside to keep as a pet, just because they were so readily available. But that was probably one of the worst jobs. Like it paid really well. I got like a company car and all that kind of stuff. I
It's because
enjoyed
no
that
one wants to do
aspect.
it.
What's that?
It's because no one wants to do it. It's hot.
Yeah,
It's sweaty. It's bad work.
yeah.
I mean, it's an
And then
honest job, but
I'm a
it's terrible.
fair-skinned, redheaded ginger from lives in his basement from West Virginia, walking around the 90% humidity, 100 degrees in Florida. Oh man, I just was
I
covered in
God,
sweat.
I took a job flyering cars down by Disney one summer,
Oh
and
gee,
I did it in the middle of the night. So like we'd go out at like 1 in the morning usually is when we'd start,
yeah.
and we'd work straight through till like 7 in the morning.
Mm,
And I still remember a night where I'd just gotten like my back tattooed, so I
yeah,
like was just walking around with almost nothing on that night, basically just a swimsuit, and just dripping sweat all off of me because it's like 85 degrees at night and still 100% humidity, and
yeah. I
like
think that's why
it's I never thought I'd be able to tolerate the cold, but now that I'm up in New York, it's like I don't think I could tolerate Florida again.
yeah, yeah. There's no way I would be back before. No, no hate to anybody living in Florida. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, but I could not live there again. I have a hard time. Like we were actually talking about going down there for vacation. I'm like, let's give it a few more years. I've only been out for about 10 years. I need a little bit more time. But
Yeah.
there's so many cool species down there. I mean, a lot of invasive species. Like I know iguanas are really taking over southern Florida right now. There's or Tillicatl vogons out there, and I
I've
someone else.
actually collected those from an orange grove.
Really, you actually saw them?
Yes, I've been out to the orange groves and seen them in person.
Oh wow!
Had one for a
So
really long time too.
did you? How many were out there? Did you
Oh,
like?
there were burrows everywhere.
Were there?
Yeah, I didn't get much out of a lot of them. I think other people had been out collecting right before I'd been there.
Yeah,
But yeah, the burrows were everywhere.
that is wild. Did you determine or did they ever determine where like how they got introduced, or is it just still just a mystery?
It's mostly a mystery, but I mean, the most likely culprit is someone had a wild caught pet one, and their mom said no in the 70s, and they let it go, and they were by an orange grove that was abandoned, and that was perfect
Yeah,
habitat. Like
man.
that's the
I mean,
most likely
I
way it happened.
yeah, that's what I assumed as well. I'm not a
Like
huge fan of the government coming in and regulating anything really, but especially exotic pets. But with the exception of Florida, just because it's the
Florida needs
environment,
it.
yeah, it's so much different than most of the other states in the U.S. and so many things can thrive down there, like like iguanas and a lot of snakes and
Like
reptiles.
I've known people who've let their Burmese pythons go in the Everglades or their anacondas.
Oh, geez,
And it's like, I don't think these snakes should be legal in Florida, or at least they should be licensed.
yeah,
So
or
that
even like
way, if they find a wild one somewhere, they can go, oh, well, this person in this area kept them.
yeah, or have them tagged or microchipped or something, so they
Yeah.
you'd be like, all right, this is obviously yours. But I remember, was it Hurricane Andrew that came through? That was Miami and just decimated the area. And I remember reading about a lot of animals that escaped, like they were in people's homes or they were in pet shops and stuff like that, completely legal. But they ended up getting out, or people let them out because they couldn't take them with them, and they figured they have a better chance of surviving if they just let them go. So and that fed a lot of that those invasive species. But I was talking, I think it was Alex from Tarantula Haven because he lives down out in the Orlando area, and he was complaining because there was a lot of species of roaches he wasn't able to keep because they're so invasive down there.
Yep.
And
Oh, I was still able to get them when I lived there. Like it's not hard to get them still.
yeah,
But you're talking about Hurricane Andrew. That's actually responsible for one of the biggest ecological disasters as far
Really?
as invasive species go. In that some bars on the coast had saltwater fish tanks with lionfish in them,
uh-huh.
and they got released into the Atlantic. I mean, they're from the Indian Ocean where they actually have predators.
Yeah.
But in the Atlantic, they have no predators at all. And the native fish, I think they're down to like 10% what the population used to be. Just
Oh,
because the
wow.
lionfish have no predators and they can eat anything. And they reproduce in massive numbers. And like it all came from that.
No, that's wild. I was actually watching. My wife was watching some TV show. What was it? It was I think it had Zoe Deschanel in it, the New Girl or something like that. She was streaming that on Netflix, and they were talking about this guy was wanting to get a lionfish and was complaining about all the regulations. So I guess that makes sense why it would be so heavily regulated. The
Yeah,
people
I mean,
are letting
I've
go
wanted to
fish.
get one myself, but I mean, I don't mind some regulations on it to make sure people know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's we've actually talked about that a few times on the podcast. Just a lot of the regulation that's going on with tarantula species and different snakes and reptiles and stuff like that. And it's a frustrating topic because I can really see both sides.
Yeah.
When the example of the lionfish or invasive roaches or reptiles in Florida and stuff like that, it kind of makes sense that the government should step in and be like, hey, we can't do this here because of the environment. But then there's also the other side of that coin where places like Oregon they're going through and making all of these species of tarantula and a whole bunch of snakes. They're like, yeah, you can't keep those here. And it's like there's no way that species could be invasive in Oregon.
Like I live next to near New York City where you can't keep ferrets.
Yeah,
Like or gerbils, I think, is another one that's like really weird that you can't have.
it is strange. I didn't do that.
But like
Is that within the city or is that statewide?
it's just New York City.
Okay.
Because I mean, if it extended out, I wouldn't be able to keep tarantulas in the state
Yeah.
because those are also banned in the city. But like when I lived in Florida, I had the permit required to keep venomous arthropods. I needed to have that just to keep scorpions and some of the hotter spiders. I got it right after seeing my first wandering spider in person,
Yeah.
but I only ever used it for scorpions and pokies and stuff like that. But I mean, I never saw a problem with having to get that. It wasn't very hard to get. It's just you pay a small fee.
Yeah.
But like the problem with a lot of this stuff is the people writing these laws don't know what they're legislating. And they'll find like one random outspoken person to help them draft the bill. And sometimes that person has ulterior motives or they don't fully understand something. Like I was present when body piercing was getting regulated in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
And my boss at a shop I was part-timing at, he was the one they picked to regulate it. And some of the stuff he did not make any sense. The tattoo industry was against the regulations, and they said, hey, if you don't regulate tattooing, we won't fight the one on body piercing. So, like, there's all kinds of things that happen with these regulations that people just don't know about, like behind the scenes. So,
I mean, a lot of times
there's
they're written by people that are opposed to it. Like
Yeah.
I know that like when you look at the vape industry, it's like with anti-tobacco lobbyists aren't really the ones so much writing it as it is the tobacco lobbyists.
Yep.
It's like it's like the competition is the one. And I know with a lot of times, I think it was Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles just had a video on this about regulation. He's out of Canada, but was talking about a lot of the U.S. regulation. And it's like, it's not reptile keepers, or reptile experts or scientists or anything like that are writing these, and it's not the breeders that are writing the bills, or introducing legislation or even being consulted on it. It's like PETA or
Oh God, PETA.
ASPCA or whatever these like humane society fronts that don't really do much for the for being like they don't do much for pets in all actuality.
Yeah.
It's more it's kind of a joke when it comes down to it.
I mean, it's
So yeah,
it's it's another argument for we need less lawyers in government and we need more scientists and real people and stuff.
yeah,
People who actually know what's happening.
yeah. I mean, up here, it was actually just across the state line over in Pittsburgh. I guess a few years ago, but there was a news story. A guy had a bunch of reptiles, and he had like a little duplex kind of apartment, and in it he had some boas, pythons, a couple of alligators. I mean, just a bunch of like ridiculously large reptiles and a bunch of other exotic pets. And one of the alligators somehow escaped. Like he left the
Oh,
door open
jeez.
or something and walked out. And like they found like residential neighborhood. There's an alligator walking down the street in Pittsburgh, and people were losing their minds over it. Like and it's things like that. Like one thing will happen from one irresponsible person making one mistake,
Yep.
and then just the whole hobby kind of gets painted by that one brush. Like, well, everybody that's keeping reptiles probably has an alligator in their basement that could eat a child. So we need to regulate this.
I'm
It's
just
like,
thinking of Snake Discovery now and their alligator. They take really good care of it, though. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I love those guys.
I actually, like my time frame, like my timeline's so messed up with COVID. Whenever the last time I was at the Tinley Park in ARBC, it was we walked into a hotel. My wife and I showed up, and it was late. It was probably like 9 o'clock at night by the time we rolled into town, and the people in front of us, and I cannot remember her name, but it was the young lady from Snake Discovery and her boyfriend or whatever. Man, I wish I could remember her name right now.
I
But
actually don't have the part of my brain that codes people's names properly connected.
yeah,
It's a symptom of my autism, and I can never remember people's names.
well,
Drives me
I,
crazy because everyone thinks I don't care.
yeah, I wish I could blame that on autism. Maybe I just don't care. I'm really bad with names as well. But they were right in front of me we were checking in the hotel, and part of me wanted to introduce myself and be like, hey, what's up? And I'm a YouTuber, you're a YouTuber, we should be friends. But then I'm also like, I'm really tired, and I generally I'm not a people person. So it's like, I really don't want to talk to them. And so I just stood there silently behind them, like, yeah, whatever. And anyways, they ended up, they were at the wrong hotel. They are like at the hotel right next door. So they like took off, and I'm start checking in. I look over, and then there's their Canon camera, like their DSLR that he was holding, was just sitting on the counter. I was like, oh crap! Like I know how expensive that stuff can be, and
Yeah.
when you're going somewhere like the largest reptile breeder conference in North America, like you need that to do what you're doing. Like that was the whole reason they came, probably, or a good portion was to record. So I was like, told the front desk, I was like, this is its camera. But there's, a line of people. There's probably 15 people behind me. So I couldn't like stop checking out or checking in just to go chase them down and give them their camera. So
Yeah.
I gave it to the front desk, was like, they just left. You might want to go let them know. I kind of felt bad.
Jeez.
Maybe I should have said hi. But I mean, I actually talked to him later on and was like, you guys got your camera back, right? And she was like, yeah. I was like, awesome. But yeah, they seem like really nice people. That was a long story to a short point.
No, it's a good point. It's when people see
So yeah,
when people see
couldn't-
YouTubers in
I mean,
public,
I
it's
struggle
okay to
with the
talk to us.
reptiles
We're
I have.
awesome.
Like I could not do something like they're doing. There's a few other people that are doing that as well. But I've got a ball python, a king snake, or two king snakes, a couple of leopard geckos, a date gecko. That's about it. But I mean, do you keep reptiles as well?
My wife and I each have one of our own reptiles.
Okay.
She has a ball python, which is to my right, and then to my left. Like we've got them both sitting in the living room. I have a pink tongue skink.
Oh, really? My friend's child has a blue tongue skink.
I wanted
Yeah.
a blue tongue forever, and
Yeah.
then again I'm blanking on names. The guy that always does is this the right reptile for you, and he ranks how good they are.
It's reptiles.
Yes, yes, that's him. He did an episode on the pink tongue skink, and as soon as I saw their little flappy doodle tongue, like I immediately fell in love. And I was like, oh, but they're really rare. I'm never going to find one. I walk
Yeah.
into my local reptile store that I'm friends with, and they've got two brand new captive born pink tongue skinks.
Hmm.
And I was like, I have a PVC enclosure in the house we don't need. Do you guys want that for a skink? And yeah, we worked out a really good deal, and she's one of my favorite pets I've ever had.
So what's the draw or the allure to the skinks? Because I mean, I've seen my friend's kid. She had one, and it just didn't excite me. I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand why this would be a good pet. So maybe since you have one, you can fill me in on what's the positive attributes there.
The blue tongues are a little less active, so I can kind of get that sentiment. Pink tongues are a little more active. They're arboreal, so they're more prone to climb around on you when you take them out.
Hmm.
But the big thing is they're really friendly as far as reptiles go. You don't have to do any taming down for the most part. You can see intelligence when you interact with them. They remember you, and it's just they're easy to care for. They don't have difficult maintenance requirements. Like mine eats prepared snails and really expensive dog food. And that's all I have to feed her. Like I pre-package it in little Ziploc bags. They're all up in the freezer and they're all portioned out. And so like
Nice.
every 3 days I grab one out, let it thaw on top of her enclosure, and then just drop it in her bowl and she tears it up.
Very cool.
Like she's super easy to care
Yeah.
for.
My leopard geckos. Actually, I have two leopard geckos and a day gecko, and I feel like none of them like me. I can tell they recognize me, and they're like, "Yeah, not this guy again." I mean, one of them tolerates me. He'll let me handle it and stuff like that. But
I was
for
gonna
the
say
most
leopard
part,
geckos at least are tolerant.
yeah. But they're just the day gecko wants nothing to do with me. But I think that's pretty typical for day geckos. They're a little flighty. It's
I
like,
had a couple
they'll-
day geckos once. Just they were way too needy for me.
Yeah, it was I hate to say it, but it was kind of an impulse buy. Like I had been to a couple of reptile expos, saw how much they were charging for those giant day geckos, and the local pet shop had one marked down. It was like 75, 80% off or something. I was like,
Oh,
what's
wow.
wrong? After we have a pet for so many for so long, like so many weeks, so many months or whatever, to sell at parents' house, and nobody bought it at the parent price. You know, or kept going it because somebody buys it. Oh, then I will buy it. $20 and $25 for a big gecko. I think it's a bad deal. And
Mine was what was it? It was the local reptile club in Orlando was having a raffle, and one of the raffle prizes was a tarantula I wanted, and so I entered it, and I won a pair of day geckos.
oh, geez.
So I was like, okay, I guess I'm keeping some day geckos.
Yeah.
And after like 2 months, I was like, I'm gonna find someone else that wants these,
Yeah.
and like just gave them to a friend of mine that wanted them.
Right on.
So a friend
do
of
you-
mine won some day geckos.
There you go. Yeah, I ended up giving one of my. I've told this story before, probably multiple times on the podcast, but I'm a cheapskate. So when instead of buying like Exoterra enclosures at the pet shop or online, which occasionally I will if I need one, but I am constantly going through like Craigslist and different whatever like local kind of websites that are selling just junk. Like there's like yard sale Facebook groups and stuff like that for the local area, and find people that are selling their Exoterras for 10, 20, $30.
Yep, I've done
Even
the
if I
same.
need them, I see one that's really cheap, and it's like, okay, I'll give you $20 for that enclosure. Just
I was
keep 'em
wondering
on
how you
top.
had all those glass enclosures in your basement.
Yeah, yeah. that is how. Because I mean, a lot of times I'd be like, they'd have one for sale, and I'd be like, yeah, I'll buy that for $20, and they're like, all right, come by my house, and I show up, and they've got 5 or 6 enclosures, like they got just a bunch of glass aquariums and stuff, and I'm like, no, you can have all of it if you want it. I'm like, for how much? They're like, just $20. I'm like, sweet. So I fill my car up with enclosures, and
I've had the same
Okay.
thing happen. They're just like, we just want it out of here. Just take it.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm not paying $150 for a glass enclosure if I can find one used for $20. Like it's.
See,
like,
I've been really lucky up here. We've got a local person that manufactures custom acrylic enclosures.
nice.
So like any animal we have that I want something a specific shape or size, like they've been able to make it. So
Yeah.
like even my wandering spider, because I don't want that thing to get out, they
Yeah.
made me an enclosure with a door on each side. So if it's on the left side, I can open the right side. I've got like a water dish on each side that I can fill.
Yeah.
And I've never had an issue with that even coming close to getting out because of that.
Yeah. One of
Or,
the sponsors on my YouTube channel, and sometimes they sponsor the podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with Tarantula Cribs.
I've
They
been
make,
wanting to try their stuff. I like those magnetic
yeah,
closures on those.
yeah. I am and I'm not just saying it because they sponsor videos. But I just genuinely really like their enclosures. They look really sharp, and I like that locking lid. But one of the biggest complaints I get anytime I mention them in a video is people complaining about the price. It's like that's $50 for an enclosure. I'm like, yeah, but if you got the Exoterra, it would be
It's
the
basically
same
the
price.
same.
Yeah, then and it's not built for arachnids. It's like you got to modify it and make compromises. Like I love those little 8x8x8 exoteric cubes or the 12x12x12s, but it's
Yep.
like really no tarantula that's ideal for it. It's like it's too short for an arboreal. It's not, you can't get deep enough substrate for a terrestrial, and infusorials you can't even don't even
I'm
consider.
gonna beg to differ. I have a green bottle blue in one that is doing beautifully, and it's perfect for her
Okay, yeah, yeah,
because they're really not any of the three types.
it's very true. I actually have my OBT in a 12x12x12, and it loved it. So yeah, there are a few that I guess you're right, but for the most part,
Yeah, I'm not gonna put a geniculata in there or anything.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got a mature male B Voggins in one of the 12x12x12 cubes, and I mean it works, but it's not ideal. Like it doesn't have. It's just too much space between
Yeah,
the floor, like the top of the substrate and the lid, and it makes me nervous using those.
like
But
I
they
keep
work.
a lot of mine in I want to say 16 or 18-inch shoe boxes
Yeah,
that I just drill my own air holes for. Like same thing with my roaches. Like I just keep them in really big, basically Rubbermaid bins.
yeah,
In a lot of cases, those are honestly the best enclosures you can do.
yeah, yeah. I use a lot of AMAC boxes, Pioneer plastic boxes. Just like plastic display boxes, and drill or melt the holes in them. They're great for spiderlings and juveniles. It's very cost effective. Just go to the Container Store and get 20 enclosures for $20 for your spiderlings. They're pretty much.
I've never
Uh,
lived near any Container Store, and it drives me crazy. I would love to check that place out.
yeah. Actually, there's one in Pittsburgh, but I've never been to it.
That is the
I always
closest one to me, by the way.
What's that?
That is the closest one to me. That or
Yeah.
Toronto.
Wow. I order from it all the time, but it's like I could drive the 45 minutes to Pittsburgh and pick it up, or they'll just deliver it to me the next day. Like we'll just get it delivered because I hate driving to Pittsburgh.
I'm
It's a
really
beautiful
bad at
city.
estimating measurements in my head, so I don't trust myself to just do it from the website.
Yeah. We went out to last summer, or was it last? Yeah, I think it was last summer. Was it COVID happening last summer? Yeah.
Yeah.
So summer before COVID. That's how I'll do my timelines. And we went out to another cousin. Another one of my wife's cousins was getting married, and they lived out in Los Angeles. So we went out there for their wedding, and we were doing one of those touristy things, like where you go down to a Chinese theater, in downtown Hollywood, and you get on one of those double-decker buses, and they drive you throughout LA. And one of the places that we stopped for a few hours was some kind of market with a bunch of stores and restaurants, and it was just a cool little spot. But there was a Container Store there, and I was like, we gotta go. Everybody else, the rest of her family's like, we're not going to the Container Store. I'm like, come on, please, it's right here. They did not understand my desire. My wife did, and she's like, yeah, we're not going to do that because I don't want to. We have to lug those containers around for the rest of the day. That's
See,
not
I would totally end up doing it, and then all of them would get cracked on the way back.
It's very
Like,
true.
guaranteed.
Yeah, and then of course, I'd have to take a plane home. So yeah, it was probably the smart thing not to go, but
Yeah.
I really wanted to. It was pretty disappointed.
I still wonder about these people that fly for reptile shows
Yeah.
and, like,
What do you
intend to
want?
buy stuff.
Oh, well, I know the ones that I've been to, they have somebody like Ship Your Reptiles has a booth there. So you buy all your stuff, and then you go to them, and they take it and box it up for you. You just pay them however much for the shipping. Like it's like $50 per reptile or something like that. I mean,
That's
or
pretty
not,
cool.
yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome.
It
Because
must be a new thing. I haven't seen them before.
yeah, I know. I don't know if that's how widespread that is. I just know like pretty much the only one I've been to is the Tinley Park NARBC one, and I know there's no Ship Your Reptiles is there. There may be another company too, but I know a lot of people were buying snakes and then would bring them to them, and they would ship them out. So that, they would even like, well, what time, like what day are you going to be home, and
Yeah.
schedule the shipment so that they'd be there the day you arrived or the next day. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, I've got to tell my
it's
wife
like-
about that, so maybe we can hit the tarantula thing that's in Arizona every so often.
Yeah. that
Actually
would
bring
be-
some stuff home from it.
Yeah. I ended up driving. Like I drive to Chicago whenever we go to that expo, mainly because I don't want to pay for shipping and don't want to try and sneak them on a plane. So it's like, what is it? Like I don't even remember, 12-hour drive, something like that, 10-hour drive. It's not that bad from where I am.
I've had to start driving to everything just because my stomach's been getting worse as I've gotten older, so now I throw up every time I fly,
No,
and I'm not very fond of that. Because everyone on the plane stares at you the entire flight when you do.
yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Like I used to travel all the time when I was a musician. Like I've been to every state in the country except for 2.
Yeah.
And like now I can't travel like I used to. It's so funny.
Yeah, I prefer driving, to be honest with you. I'm actually heading down to Virginia Beach this summer, as well, as long as everything is safe and opening back up by then.
I'm not getting my hopes up on this summer, to be honest.
I just it's kind of like a half family vacation, half visiting the Fear Not Tarantulas brick and mortar store. So I really want to video on that. I thought it'd be really cool to go
I'd
down
love to just
there.
go.
Yeah, and but it was kind of hard to sell it as, I'm going to be gone for the weekend. I'm going to Virginia Beach to go make a video at this tarantula shop. Because my wife and kid are like, well, we want to go to the beach. So it's like, well, we can all go, but we're not going to like Myrtle Beach or Florida or anything like that. It's going to be Virginia Beach, which isn't the most exciting of all the beaches you could go to on vacation, I'm sure, but.
Well, some people just like beaches.
Yeah, but I'm stoked just to go see the tarantulas. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I've heard their shop's going to be pretty interesting down there. Like as far as
Yeah.
all the stuff they've got.
I've seen some of the pictures. I know that they also have like some true spiders and centipedes and praying mantises. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of inverts. In there.
Those
I'm
are
not
3
sure.
things I have trouble finding and would really like to get a hold of.
Yeah, I mean I'm about 45 minutes an hour outside of Pittsburgh in West Virginia, and there's a Petco and a Pet Supplies Plus, and they don't really carry anything that exotic. So it's, I've been told there's a couple of cool pet shops in Pittsburgh, but it's always like a look but don't buy situation because they're just really expensive.
Yeah.
Some of their tarantulas are hundreds of dollars. You could order them online for 60. So it's like, it's unless you need it right away, there's no reason to buy it. So I ended up never even going to them. I should really do that at some point. But there's just nowhere in this small town in West Virginia to get any kind of exotic pets. So it's like I either go to expos or check out a pet shop like that is pretty much the only opportunity. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to doing that, and I think it's cool that the hobby's grown so much that business like that is able to even exist.
Like I still remember when you couldn't get 200 of us together on a message board.
Yeah.
Like 200 was like, oh my God, we have 200 tarantula keepers. And like all you could find was like the Tarantula Keeper's Guide. Like that's what we
Yeah.
all learned from. And like you could find maybe like 2 species locally. And then you'd have to like search for these importers. And it was like Todd Gearhart and Kelly Swift were like the 2 big ones I knew back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing to see how much easier it is to find stuff now.
It was that guy Paul out on the West Coast. What was his last name?
I think I know who
Oh.
you're talking about, but
Yeah,
again, a name.
Pet Center USA for a while.
Oh yeah, I think I remember hearing about them.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the one that everything
Yeah.
kind of went wrong there?
Yeah. That would be
Oh
technically.
boy.
I think he still owes me $200, but whatever. We'll let that go.
Yeah, I had a breeder who I won't name for obvious reasons in a second. But when I was early in the hobby, they were selling me guaranteed females,
Yeah.
and all 30 of them ended up being male.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, that was my introduction to be more careful in the hobby.
Yeah, yeah. I get people sometimes send me messages that they bought a confirmed female from some random place. I don't think it really matters where it came from, but then it ends up being male, and they have that kind of paranoia, conspiracy kind of centered mind. And they're sexing them as males, very young, and selling them as females just because they don't need the males. And I'm like, I don't think that's it. I think
There is
it's
actually some of that with
underneath that
importers.
small. What's that?
There is some of that with importers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but some of the more reputable dealers, when that happens, I'm pretty sure it was probably just a mistake.
Yeah, no. The times that it's happening is when it's shipped to local pet stores, like small or big chain pet stores. They give them the males because they're just attracting the more casual keepers. And then the females go to the people in the hobby that are picking up imports and selling them to other keepers.
I mean, pretty
That's
much.
what I've experienced.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I'm buying a tarantula from Petco or PetSmart, I'm assuming that it's most likely going to be a male. Like I was talking about earlier, I was buying all those avicularias. I think every single one of them ended up being a male.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because people don't know. You can't look at it. It's not like the people who work there can sex it. The people buying it aren't really concerned about it and don't realize the lifespan is so much shorter for males. It's a fuzzy tarantula that they're going to keep for a while. So they're just excited to get it. So I mean, from a business standpoint, I could understand being like a wholesaler, just selling all your males, like especially juvenile males to large stores like that. Because I have a feeling Petco's not paying them more for females than they are for males. They probably got a flat rate for the tarantula.
Like, I mean, it works out for people like me because I can just go, oh, we need a male of this species, and we just check the local pet stores.
Yeah.
Like, that's how we've gotten a lot of our males for breeding.
Yeah, that's very true. I did, though, come across I think it was my Brachypelma Bamey. Man, I may be wrong on that, but I feel like that was it. I was at one of those chain pet stores. They had it for a while, for many months, and it was not too long after I got that gecko at discount price. So I was, and I'm in there all the time buying, just random stuff. Like, they see me like, oh man, there's that tarantula guy. Like, I don't think they're excited to see me because they're like, he's gonna order 200 crickets or something stupid, make his work. But I had seen it and been in there for a while, and they even had it mislabeled. They said it was like a Mexican red meat. And I'm like, that is very obviously a Bamey, And I pretty much was like trying to haggle the poor manager. I was like, how about, like, if you give me 50% off, I'll buy it right now. She's like, yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. And I'm like, oh, I really wanted it. It was beautiful. And it ended up being a female. So like I ended up getting, she was a little small. I mean, she was probably a young adult, Brachypelma Bamey, and I only paid like $60 for it or something.
Oh, that's not bad.
I was pretty stoked about that.
I gotta say, I do miss the early days of the hobby where you could walk into a pet store and find a Smith Eye or a Hamorai as it is now, but find them mislabeled as a rose hair for $10.
Yeah.
Like, that just doesn't happen anymore. But God, I must have bought like 5 of them like that back in the day.
Yeah. I got my first tarantula down in, was I? No. First one was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was going to college out there, and I don't even remember what pet store it was. It was some chain. It was probably a Petco or something like that. And just like an end cap on one of the aisles, they had a bunch of 16-ounce deli containers or something, like maybe 32-ounce deli containers. What are those small little plastic ones? There's probably like 15 of them on there with just a tarantula and a sponge in each one of them. They're all rose hairs. But they didn't even tell you what it was. It was just like tarantulas, $9.99 or something. Yeah. It's like, oh, I want to get one of those. And I was like trying to overcome my fear of spiders. So I was like, that's not a big investment. And that thing lived forever. It was my buddy. I ended up, and that obviously she was a female and never hooked out or anything like that. So, it was a nice deal. Now people are, wanting to find rose hairs, like full grown rose hairs, and they're nowhere. It's ironic. They were like in it. It may have been I'm sure it was because most of them were wild caught. But then I moved to Florida, and there was I can't even remember. I wish I could remember the name of the pet shop. It was in Daytona Beach, and it was like an exotic pet shop. I mean, they had fish and stuff like that, but they also had monkeys and like a little fox. I think those were like display animals. But I mean, they had a bunch.
Think
Like
I
a
know the
little,
pet store.
yeah, it was very cool. And I got another rose hair from them. And I actually brought before I bought a second tarantula, I had brought my first one in because I was wanting to see if the guy would tell me what sex it was because I was like I don't know if it's a male or female, and I don't know where the genitals are, so I was like you look at it and tell me. And he's like, yeah, I can't do that. But I had like taken the lid off the enclosure and stuck my hand in there and pulled it up, and he freaked out. He was like, don't handle your tarantula. I'm like, what? That was the first time I'd ever heard somebody be like, that's not a good idea. And I was like, I handle her all the time. I'm maybe 20 years old, something like that. And it was like, it was the cool thing to do. Like I get drunk with my friends and then pull the tarantula out and show people, like
Jeez.
terrible, terrible stuff. Like looking back, it's like that was really dumb and reckless.
Oh,
But
if you want dumb and reckless, my first tarantula is probably going to top that.
okay.
So, local pet store back in Florida, place that was like next to a Walmart, little mom and pop place. I was 18 years old, and they had a little tarantula in a deli cup, same thing. And he told me it was a Goliath tarantula. It was a rose hair. He said it was a female, and she'd get 2 feet in leg span, and I would need to feed her adult rats when she's full grown.
Holy crap.
And like, this is sounding like the coolest thing in the world to an 18-year-old. So I bought it for $10, took it home, put it in a 10-gallon with a 1/4 inch of sand, a little ceramic hide, and a rock water dish with a sponge in it, a screen mesh lid that she would get her toes stuck in all the time. Turned out it was a male rose hair. He matured on his next molt and then died about a year later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did everything wrong on keeping that guy. Never handled him though. I was too afraid to back then.
Yeah.
But shortly after he passed, I got my very first real tarantula, which was a real Goliath bird eater. So I got a Theraphosa blondii, and did everything mostly right on that one. I did do some weird enclosure things where I kept it in a 20-gallon aquarium by itself as a spiderling.
Hmm.
But it actually helped with the ventilation and the humidity and everything, the way I was keeping it.
Yeah.
So it worked out, but
Yeah.
just that rose hair on the sand with the sponge and screen lid. Oh my God, look at my Goliath tarantula.
Yeah, I did. It wasn't set up ideally, that's for sure. Like I didn't have it on cocoa fiber. I think it was initially it was the Reptibark, so like it
Yep.
had no way of burrowing, and it had a water dish with a sponge in it and crappy hide, and then a incandescent light bulb on the top of the enclosure and that was like straight out of the Tarantula Keeper's Guide. Like that's where I got that information. Whatever version that was back then. And it wasn't until and I think kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, like especially with arachnoboards and stuff like that, it was a big thing to have 200 people. Like back then, I didn't know there was any kind of groups or message boards or anything like that for tarantula keepers. Like I really like tarantulas. I would buy books. Like I've got a bookshelf, like a whole shelf on my bookshelf is just tarantula books that I bought over the years and checked them out from the library and stuff like that. And I think back then, I still had like a dial-up internet connection, and I didn't spend a whole lot of time online. It wasn't my thing. So I wasn't like looking for information. So I never came
Yeah.
across any of those message boards or anything like that. And I
No,
think that's
I
part of
think
the reason.
I
The
think I
hobbies-
searched tarantulas on Yahoo to find
Yeah.
arachnoboards.
Nice. Yeah, like there's vague memories of maybe coming across arachnoboards like way back in the day, but like just that type of like message boards I don't enjoy very much. Like just reading threads. That's why like I'm not huge on Reddit or arachnoboards and tarantula forums and stuff like that. Like I join them and occasionally will interact, but I just whatever reason my brain doesn't like processing that form of information. If that makes sense. like reading threads.
No,
So
I get that. I've ended up mostly leaving in recent years
yeah.
just because I'm tired of answering the same question a million times, or
Mhm.
the people who will try and talk over experienced advice I give
Yeah,
with
that I
horrible
imagine that's
advice usually.
frustrating. Yeah, and then there's the other side of that. There's a lot of people that are there looking for information that are new, and because you're people like you are just frustrated and tired of
Yeah.
saying the same thing over and over again. Because instead of searching for a thread that's that has the question they're about to ask, they just create a new thread, and people get short with them, and then they are all upset. Like, people are so mean to me, and they're picking on me. It's like,
People really
yeah,
need to
well,
work on being nicer to new keepers.
yeah. That's part of the reason. Like, that's part of the goal of what I'm doing here with the Tarantula Collective and everything is trying to at least create some space that's beginner friendly. And I
Yeah.
catch a lot of crap. A lot. There's a lot of trolls out there. A lot of people that are very well respected, very knowledgeable people in the hobby that don't like my Facebook group, for example, because it's like you know a lot, but I mean, if you're going to be shitty when you're saying it to people, like, we don't want you in here. Like, we want your information, but we don't want your arrogance and your bad attitude, and
Yeah.
and it's trying to keep the trolling down. I mean, there's one thing from like just being snarky, like that's I understand that, but I mean, when you're like going out of your way to humiliate and demean someone, it's like, yeah, that's not helping. Like,
Yeah,
hey,
no,
I'm glad you had this information, but
it's every hobby though.
oh yeah, definitely. And I think compared to other hobbies, the tarantula hobby is nowhere near as bad as like the ball python community or
Oh my god, the Magic the
all
Gathering community. They're the worst.
so I mean, I'm not like hating on anybody. I'm just and I try to explain that to them as nice as I can. Like, hey, I respect you. I respect what you know. I think you're an asset to the community, but you're not right for this group. Like this is a just a friendly space for we're catering to people that are new. So I mean, if you don't have the patience or the ability to kindly explain something, when they learn what they need to learn, then they can cross paths with you later on, and maybe have the knowledge that they need to not irritate you or something. And it's just weird for me because I mean I'm got a very dark sense of humor and very sarcastic and snarky, and
Same.
up until recently I loved arguing on Facebook and stuff like that. Like, that was
I
one of
can't
the
get into
things.
that though.
If I could argue with you about religion or politics, I would for hours. And it's like I know that desire to troll people online. Like, I have been guilty of it for many years, but it's like in this one group, I'm not going to do it, and I expect other people not to do it because this is an area, like just a little space where we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind how upset people got at that initially. Like, how dare you create a safe space for new people? It's like, do you hear what you're saying? Like,
Seriously.
they're the future of the hobby. It's going to help everybody. Let's just have like a nice, people being nice to them in like one group for a little while. See how it goes. Just experiment, see what happens.
Like I try to tell people about this with Magic the Gathering. It's like if you're a jerk to everyone that comes in with questions, you're eventually
Yeah.
going to run out of people to play the game with.
Yeah, it's very true.
And
And
like with this hobby, like if you're a breeder and you're a jerk to everyone, you're going to run out of people to sell to.
exactly. I mean, it's not so much customer service, but it kind of is customer service.
A little
Even
bit,
if you're
yeah.
not selling tarantulas, like if you're wanting to perpetuate the hobby and make it better, then you've got to make it appealing. And that's why I started making YouTube videos partially. 'Cause it's like I really love tarantulas, and I really enjoyed watching videos about tarantulas. And for me, the way I learned, that's like that visual kind of teaching was the most effective. I could like
Yeah.
struggle reading, and deciphering a thread of, on a message board, or read a care sheet that's coming from somebody I don't know who they are. It's like I don't know if this is trustworthy or not. And there's 20 different websites with 20 different care sheets. They're all a little bit different, and in ways that I like, personally, especially like with avicularia, like a lot of those websites are saying, you got to mist them twice a day, and all just
See, this is what really gets me about some of this is like people will come in and they'll ask for advice on how to care for something. And people are like, oh, just go Google it. Do your own research. Like, why are you being lazy? And it's like, no, sometimes when you Google, you get bad information or you get conflicting
Yeah.
information. Like you're
Exactly.
asking for actual like lived experience, like what works for you. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's just way more valuable.
No, I agree 100%. And I do think people should do their own research, but I also know, especially with all the time I've spent researching analytics and search engine optimization, that if they just Google it, they're not getting the best information all the time. You know, a
Yep.
lot of times they're getting really bad information just because it's gotten a lot more clicks because it's been around a lot longer. And it's
Or someone just knows how to optimize it better.
exactly. Yeah. So it's like, you can't just Google it. Like that's not the best way to get the information. And like that's why groups like this exist, is so that people with experience right now can answer their question in real time, or like at least within a few hours of the question being posed. Like and I think that's what's helped the hobby grow so much over the past few years, is just this explosion in social media and these,
Yeah.
ability to communicate and network and find, like-minded people in the thousands. Like my Facebook group alone is like, if it's not already, is right around 20,000 members.
Oh, that is
And
so
we're like
cool.
really picky about, like, we don't, yeah, there's some groups that it's like, anybody that asks to join gets accepted. But the
Hmm.
moderators of my group are really good at kind of going through and making sure that they're not a bot. Like
Yeah.
asking questions. If you don't answer all the questions, even if you're a real person with a real interest in tarantulas, if you can't take the 30 seconds to answer the three questions, two of which are yes or no questions, then you're not going to be in the group, because they're not going to take that risk, letting some spammer or bot in there that's just going to be harvesting information. So it to me, that's amazing. Like just the fact that there's 20,000 people that would want to be in a Facebook group just to talk about tarantulas. And then, of course, there's groups with much more than that, 2 or 3 times the amount of members. And yeah, I think that having that kind of community has really helped the hobby grow a lot. And
No, I
it
totally
works.
agree. Like having it on social media where you're already at anyway.
Right,
Like
right.
just seeing it scroll through my Facebook feed, like here's, oh, all of a sudden I've got a picture of a new tarantula species I didn't know about.
Yeah,
And like, oh
yeah,
my God, now I want one. Like, that's cool.
yeah. Especially if you're selling tarantulas, I'm sure that's a big boost to business.
I mean, that's
But
how I learned about Harpactira pulchripes, and it's now like one of my favorite species.
yeah, Harpactira pulchripes. I always mispronounce that one. It's
People
pulchripes.
mispronounce everything. This is probably my biggest pet peeve with the tarantula community, especially the YouTube community,
Yeah.
is everyone pronounces Latin names wrong. I
Oh
got
yeah.
mocked relentlessly by biology professors when I first got to college because I
Yeah.
was saying like Theraphosa blondi or Brachypelma hamori. No, it's hamori, blonde
Yeah.
eye. If there's an I at the end, it's a hard I. It's Latin. And
Yeah.
like as I went on, I was like, was it just that one professor? I've asked like a whole bunch of my professors over the years, and all of them are like, yeah, it's a hard I. Like
Yeah.
everyone's getting that wrong.
How do you pronounce the Brachypelma bamey? How do you know what the
Which one?
official one is? Bamey? 'Cause I've heard
Oh, Bomai.
Bogey, Bomai. It's Bomai.
Yes, Bomai.
Okay, because I tell people on almost every video, I feel like like
Like on
don't
most
quote me
of
on
them,
the
it's
pronunciations. Like I'm just
most of them it's subjective.
what's that?
Most of them it's a little subjective because
Yeah,
you've got like people's names in them and
right,
weird
right.
stuff sometimes. But in general, like the hard and fast rules of like the I at the end, like that's
Yeah.
a big one.
And the most frustrating thing, just from my perspective, is that I will know, like in my brain, it's pulchripes,
Hmm.
and then I record a video and I say pulchripes, and don't even
Yeah. Well, you're also saying
realize
substrate,
it.
so
And then, yeah, substrate drive people crazy apparently.
could not
I
resist
don't even
the
know
dig
where
on
that
that.
one came up from. I feel like that's just my West Virginia accent sneaking in
Oh
there
yeah,
or
no,
something.
totally. But
I'm just like,
but no,
but
like
it's like
I had some wrong. Like I used to say Ephebopus and it's Ephebopus.
Ephebopus. Should do a
Oh,
podcast just pronouncing Latin correctly.
oh
I
God, I've
can,
thought about making a YouTube video about it. I really have.
yeah,
Or like the fact that everyone now instead of saying spiderling says sling. And
yeah,
like you get someone new to the hobby, you have to explain that every single time. And if we
definitely.
just still said
Well, I made a
spiderling,
video. It was just like on the terminology. This is what New World means. This is what Old World means. This is what
mhm,
Sling means. Kind of like, because I got asked those questions. I mean, that's like what I base a lot of my videos on. What questions am I getting asked the most? And one of my pet peeves though is that I will spend 20 hours filming, edit, writing, do everything to make this video and put it out there. And then somebody asks a question. It's like, oh yeah, I have a video on that. Have you watched it? No. I'm like, oh, well, here it is. Well, can't you just tell me? It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sit here and type out 3 paragraphs when I've already spent dozens of hours making a video.
Just like you put all the effort in, they just want the TLDR.
Yeah. Like, sorry. I ain't got that kind of time.
Like, it makes me want to make videos with the TLDR at the beginning, and it's like, just watch the first 30 seconds, and it'll cover everything.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. But I have this, and you can't really probably tell right now, but I mean, I grew up in West Virginia. There's that Appalachian accent, and there's some words that I got to be very careful with. The most important one, the worst offender, is measure, like measuring tape. Like I have to really concentrate on how I pronounce that. And it's that same that middle part of the word measure is the same as in substrate, like that A kind of A. I probably sound like a very strange person right now making these weird noises, but it comes out measure. Like I'm like, hey, will you hand me that measuring tape? People are like,
I've
what?
never heard that.
So like, it was sometimes when I say substrate, it turns into like substrate. I don't even know how to do it. I can't force myself to do it, but it comes off sounding really Appalachian. So it's like
I've still got Latin names. I don't remember how I pronounced them wrong originally. I've only remembered the correct one at this point.
Yeah.
Like apophysis was another one, like Theraphosa apophysis. Like
Yeah.
I know I said it wrong before, but I don't remember how I was saying it.
Apophysis is not one I've had an issue with, but I think that's just because it sounds very similar to that Egyptian god.
I just clicked on how I used to say it, and it was apophysis.
Apophysis.
Because again, when you just read these things, you don't realize exactly what they really should be.
Yeah.
And like if you've come up just reading them online, or like you've never had anyone to talk to about them, you don't watch YouTube, like it's definitely easy to mispronounce things.
Definitely. And
like I wasn't there for the rise of YouTube, tarantula keepers. Like when I was in college and working on my degree, I took a break from all the hobby stuff. Just kept my pet ones for that time and focused on school. And then I come back and it's like, oh my God, there's hundreds of new species. There's all these cool channels where I can watch other people do this.
Yeah.
Like I can actually learn new stuff.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you never stop learning.
Yeah, it's very true. And then especially with the tarantula hobby, because there's constant influx of new information and new species still being discovered and described. And, as soon as you think you know something, then it changes.
If I'd finished my degree, I'd be one of those people out there finding them and describing them. Like that's one of the things I wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm excited because that's not really something I ever thought of doing, like ever in life. I was like, I like tarantulas, but I never thought it'd actually be out in the wild. But I have a couple of things. I mean, COVID screwed us all up, but a couple different like trips that I'm gonna go like out to the Southwest and Peru, or not Peru. Why did I say Peru? Puerto Rico. That's a lot different.
It's very different.
A few other places. just going out and filming tarantulas in the wild, and like I'm really excited to go do that.
I know there's one channel that does that on the regular.
What's that?
There is one channel that does that on the regular. It's the guy from the Netherlands area.
Bird Spider CH.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And I always like seeing those just because it's nice to see what the natural habitat's like.
Yeah. I enjoy his videos as well. And
I wish I could get
me to want to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I wish I could get through to him and be like, hey, I know you're involved with describing these species. Any chance I could get in on that?
Yeah. I'm sure just send him an email or something. I've never had a hard time.
I haven't found his email.
Oh, okay.
I'm bad at finding that kind of stuff.
He's a nice guy.
Seems like it.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're listening, go check out his YouTube channel, Bird Spider CH, if you haven't already. He's got some great content. I mean, that guy goes everywhere. He's in Mexico, South America, India. I don't know if he's actually been in India, but I feel like he would do something.
I know he's been in Costa Rica a few times.
Yeah, I mean, he was looking for a Ceropogopus, or he was looking for some fossorials, so I feel like he had to be somewhere over in Asia. But at any rate,
it just drives me crazy that like I watch him go to all these places that aren't safe for me to go to since I'm out as being gay.
Yeah,
there's like so many countries I can't travel to.
That is very true.
And like
There's a
I
lot.
want to go there and just look at bugs. Why can't you put up with a gay person looking at bugs?
Yeah, that would be frustrating. I just don't have a passport anymore, so I can't go anywhere at the moment.
I let mine expire during COVID as well.
Yeah.
Like I've
Oh,
still got like the easy passport for the state of New York where I can go to Canada, but that's
yeah.
it. There's no tarantulas in Canada.
Yeah. The things were getting crazy a while ago. I actually had made plans, um, essentially to cross the border illegally into Canada if things got crazy enough. Because I was like, "There's no way I'm going to be able to get a passport right now." So,
Oh, believe
let's
me,
just-
we've got the same kind of plans. Just disabled gay woman and her wife definitely might need to get out of the country at some point in the
the
last
Handmaid's
4 years
Tale
or
starts to
so.
become reality. We are bouncing.
We were trying to
But
figure out how to get our spiders and stuff across the border. Like that was the
yeah,
tricky part.
yeah. That's like that's how I know. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was like, I'm probably like my wife had mentioned a few times she was wanting to look at new houses, and not so much because she wanted to move, but wants to entertain the idea, And I was like, there's no way we're gonna move. Like, can you imagine how difficult it would be to move all of these reptiles and snakes, even if we're just moving a mile down the road? Like, it's not worth it.
Oh, I've moved him across the country twice.
No, thank you.
It is annoying, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm having to dance around headphones and a cat that just came back.
Uh-oh.
I'll let Zoidberg say hi real quick. Hey, Zoidberg.
Hello, hairless cat.
He's a cutie pie.
Awesome. But yeah, that's something I really would like to do in the future. Is not actually like describe tarantulas or anything like that, but just go out in the wild and see where they're actually what their natural habitat is. Just
Oh yeah, it's a
kind
great
of curiosity.
experience.
Um, but and I think that would be like Bird Spider CH. He's a great YouTube channel, very educational, and it's cool to do that vicariously. But personally, I want to do it myself. And part of the reason I got into YouTube, one was just because I really enjoyed watching these videos, and I really learned a lot from some of the YouTubers out there. And at this point, I'm not talking about Bird Spider, but some of the channels that I watched a lot and learned the most from was also very frustrating, just because they weren't. It was very like stream of consciousness. It was just like somebody holding a phone, talking for 20 minutes and repeating themselves 5 or 10 times, and
Yeah.
shaky, and it was like it wasn't pleasing to watch, if that makes sense. It wasn't like it really
No, I get
that
that.
enjoyable, just kind of educational. I got the information I needed in a manner that I could retain it a lot better than other forums, but it wasn't visually appealing, and the audio that's not a word. It didn't sound great.
Audio quality, yeah.
Yeah, the audio quality was not great.
See,
And
that's
I
my
want-
perk as being a former musician. I know my audio quality.
There you go. And that's why I was like, instead of complaining, how about I just try and do it myself? Like,
There you go.
and then realize, well, that's why it's very difficult to do this. That's why people are just
I'm
like,
terrible
"Oh,
at editing videos. I try to get it right on the first try and just we'll go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to do that for a while, and it was just like, yeah, my brain just doesn't like to do that.
One of the reasons
So,
why I like Twitch, it's a live thing, so you just have your one take anyway.
yeah. Yeah, I've done some live streaming on my channel, and it's always fun. But when I do it, it's more like I'm just hanging out, talking to people,
Yeah.
and just answering questions and stuff like that, and that's fun. But like trying to record a video in one take, like there's no way I could do that. I screw up and mispronounce and just say stupid stuff so often. It's like there's nothing.
Oh,
I have to
try
do it.
being on medical weed 24/7. You will say some weird stuff, and
I would
I'm
imagine
on
so.
it right now. So
I have no medical conditions, but in my 20s, I felt like I did. Like I was just on
yeah,
24/7. I was stoned, and yeah, that's why I don't remember most of my 20s.
that's the
Among
thing I
other
hate is the memory stuff from that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It was. My mom was telling some story. I actually had her on a YouTube video, and she was telling stories about me keeping weird reptiles and mammals and stuff like hamsters and stuff as a kid, and how like this has kind of been a theme throughout my life. And some of the stories she was telling, I was like, I don't remember that at all. She's like, well, you burnt those brain cells up. I'm like, yeah, I probably did. That's
But
what.
we're talking about educational videos and stuff. I keep toying with the idea of making PowerPoints and doing like I've taught a few biology classes while I was working on my degree, and
Yeah,
basically just teaching a tarantula class over YouTube,
I think that would be
and
very,
like
very
break
good.
down like what makes certain things unique and how we come across some of this knowledge, and here's a tutorial on breeding, and like just stuff
Yeah.
people might actually care about.
I think you should totally do that. I mean, I think videos like that would be very helpful are things like going like, and this is some stuff I've actually been planning on doing. I just haven't really figured out how to do it the way like in my style. But just like going over all the parts, like the body parts of a tarantula, just like this, just kind of just finding some way to explain those. Because then sometimes you say carapace, nobody has any idea what you're talking
Yeah.
about, or which one's the pet about, so it's just having like that ability, a video just kind of explaining that would be.
I'll give you my analogy for pedipalps that makes it so no one ever forgets it.
Hmm.
I use this when I'm teaching little kids, and I tell them to put your hands together like this. I can't bend my wrist, so I can't fully do it. But when you put your hands together like this, your fingers are the 8 legs, and your thumbs are the pedipalps. And they
Nice.
use their pedipalps like thumbs to pick things up and do everything.
Yeah,
And like
that's
when I
very
tell
good.
people that way, they never forget it.
Very good. I was
You can
actually
tell I've
supposed to
taught
do
classes.
yeah, I was supposed to do a presentation on tarantulas at like a small town nearby at their public library, and they wanted me to come in and like talk for 30 minutes or an hour about tarantulas to the kids. And I was like, luckily, I got saved by COVID. So I was like,
Jeez.
I really like I don't want to tell this poor librarian no, she's very nice, but I just don't like people. So I was like,
I
let's
love
go.
doing stuff with kids. It is so much
Yeah.
fun because they're
I'm
so
sure.
open about it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times stuff like that, like I get seriously anxious going to reptile expos or stuff like that. But once I'm there and interacting with people, it's all cool. But it's just like leading up to it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to leave my house.
That's what my
I'm like,
Xanax prescription
people.
is for. That's what gets me outdoors.
But yeah,
You're
and I'm
starting
sure
to learn
she'll.
my strategy for everything is medicate myself, basically.
I've noticed. Mine is the exact opposite. I got rid of all that stuff, with the
I
exception
wish I
of
could get rid of all of it, but I've learned
nicotine
things
is
are
bad
easier
for
with
people.
it, so I'll tolerate it.
Yeah. I think my problem is I just indulged too much, and I was like, yeah, I just can't do any of this anymore
It can be a
because
thing.
yeah, it became
I mean,
okay.
as I said, I was a performer, professional musician. Like I've seen heroin shot into an eyeball.
Yeah.
Like I've
Hmm.
seen the worst of the worst, and I've seen people who handle it really well.
Yeah. But that kind of addictive personality that I have has definitely manifested itself in the reptile and
Hmm.
arachnid hobby. I definitely have to keep myself in check sometimes because, I can get caught up in acquiring new species just for the thrill, like,
Yep.
and that's something I warn people a lot about because it's like I can recognize that myself. So, make sure you're not getting over your head because it
Yeah,
could
I
definitely.
see a lot of YouTubers where they just keep doing all these unboxing videos. And it's like unboxing after unboxing. It's like these are going to get big and you're going to run out of room.
Yeah.
Like, at least
I,
with my collection, like, yeah, I'm using all my shelf space, but all the
yeah.
babies that are growing up, I'm going to have males maturing out and going off on breedings.
I can't think of anybody by specific name at the moment, but there are some, and I think they call them pet tubers, that
Hmm.
dirty word. And they're not, I mean, they have reptiles and mammals and, arachnids and they just whatever. They're just any pet. And they're constantly doing unboxing videos and have talked about it. Like I've heard them discuss like how those are some of their most viewed videos. So
Yep.
it really kind of, it just feeds into that. Like they get the thrill of unboxing an animal, but then they also get that positive feedback, through the algorithm and through,
Hmm.
YouTube's like a lot of people enjoyed watching this. They're saying nice things. So now there's like two different fronts that are really encouraging them to get more and do it over and over again. And I have been fortunate enough that anytime I do an unboxing video, it's like one of my least viewed for whatever reason.
Same, yeah. Yeah, I
So,
tried a couple and just didn't get any views on them.
yeah, it's like
Like,
people
my
don't like
stuff that
watching
gets
people
good
talk.
views as far as my spider stuff is always like feeding an oddball animal, like a huntsman spider or a assassin bugs or a centipede.
Yeah.
Like just a really cool feeding video that you don't normally get to see.
Yeah. And I think that's where I get frustrated sometimes, is because I see these other channels, especially bigger channels, that do unboxing videos or feeding videos and get tens or hundreds or even millions of views. And I'm like, okay, that's what people want. And then I do it, and it's like, that's my worst performing video. And people are all the time like, you should do more feeding videos. I'm like, man, you haven't even watched the feeding videos I've done. Because like, some videos will have 20,000 views, and then like the feeding video I did has like 3,000. And I spent a lot of time doing that. So yeah, I'm not going to keep doing that anymore. It's a waste of time.
Like what gets me is when I see these channels with people who have like 2 to 4 years experience and that's it. And like people are taking them as gospel truth. Like everything they say is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And like I see channels where they'll feed their tarantulas hissing cockroaches, like adult hissers. And it's like, I've seen a lot of chipped fangs over the years, or broken fangs from feeding hissers.
Yeah.
Or people who will just do weird keeping things that just don't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys need to find people with more experience if you want to get like information to know for certain. Like you can't take that as like perfect information.
Right. And I feel like most of the people that make those those YouTubers aren't trying to put themselves out there as a reliable source of information. I think it's really should be viewers to be like, everything that I watch on YouTube, first and foremost, is for entertainment only. It's just the entertainment aspect first, then beyond that is information. Like if I'm watching it and I'm enjoying it, it's entertainment. There are people out there that do purely educational stuff, but it's like, even that, in this forum, they try to make it entertaining, so people will actually watch it. So you got to take that, at least keep that in consideration when you're watching anyone's videos, even mine. Like I try to tell people, like, I don't see myself as a tarantula expert at all. I didn't take biology in school. Like I have no background. I just talk about my experiences. I'm going to mispronounce a lot of stuff, so don't quote me on pronunciation, because you can almost guarantee I'm wrong more than I am right. So if somebody else says this is how it's pronounced, they're probably right, because I don't have that knowledge. But I see myself as making like car commercials for tarantulas. that's as deep and as informative.
I like that analogy. That's great.
Yeah, like I can give you all the specs. But beyond that, like I don't know how they created the engine. I don't know how it works. I can just read you the specs and show you some pretty pictures of it.
But see, that's the thing. Like I would defer to whatever stuff you say about husbandry, because I know you've been keeping long enough to have done the wrong stuff and learned from it.
Yeah, that's. But I mean, and that's just experience. So that's not. Yeah, so it's a little bit different than knowledge from like researching or going to school. Like
that's fine. I think it's just as valuable in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and that's kind of like just. I would rather hear someone's experience than read a book about it. Because there's a difference. What was that? There's a saying actually. It's like knowledge plus experience is wisdom.
Yes.
So it's like, I can at least give you some of the experience aspect of it. You go to the scientist for the get the facts and the knowledge. I can tell you my experience with it, and then put those together, and maybe you won't have to make the same mistakes I did. Like hopefully. And then it sucks sometimes. Like I'm sure as a YouTuber, you can relate. You put videos out there, and sometimes it's like you learn new stuff, and then you look back and you're like, oh man, like I was wrong in that video. And it's like your mistakes are out there for everybody to see. It's
the ones that drive me the craziest are my earliest Magic videos, because I did not know how to talk to the camera while playing Magic.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to do that, and that took me about a year.
Yeah.
Because that's a game that takes a lot of focus. It's like playing chess.
Yeah. I mean, just doing anything and talking to a camera is not natural at all. It takes a lot of practice.
Like, at least I've got the performer thing in me, but
yeah.
I was never the one on a microphone. Even though I played every instrument, I didn't go by the mics.
Yeah.
So I didn't talk to the crowd.
That's the only advantage I had is just years of playing in bars and talking to people on stage and stuff like that. Like I couldn't talk to you at the bar, but if I get up on stage and have a microphone, then all of a sudden I could have some personality.
Oh yeah, because you got the separation with the stage.
Exactly.
But like I've got that monotone autistic voice like Daria, and like
Love Daria.
oh yeah, she's amazing. I'm
Daria.
basically the living embodiment of Daria in a lot of ways.
Awesome.
But like my monotone voice, I know I can get boring when I go on and on, especially when I get on like a passion topic like spiders or something like that. And
Yeah.
like I won't shut up. That's why I wanted to go into teaching to begin with. Like you
That's
just give me
very,
the right topic and I can go for hours.
yeah. Speaking of going for hours, we are actually coming up on the 2 hour mark. So we have to
Oh
wrap
wow, I
this
didn't realize it'd been quite that long.
podcast up. Yeah. I actually have I'm such a bad podcaster. Like I was supposed to be doing this every Thursday. And I think 2 weeks now, I haven't posted anything because I've had to keep rescheduling and canceling and, one thing or another. Like I actually had
Hmm.
we had another date to do this earlier, and I don't remember if you canceled or I canceled.
It was a little of both, I think.
Yeah, I feel bad because it's
I
like,
was on like 1.5 hour of sleep because I'd had an insomnia about that night.
yeah,
And
and
I think you had somewhere you had to be that you hadn't planned for. And
yeah,
it's like, yeah, let's
well,
just do it in a couple of days.
yeah. If I can do it like in the middle of the day, usually it's not an issue. But sometimes we have struggle in my house with communication on schedules. So it's like my wife will tell me on Tuesday, oh, we've got this thing to do with my family tomorrow night. It's like, oh wow, I've got stuff scheduled. It's like,
Well, it's
you
also
can't
hard to
just
match up a diurnal schedule with a nocturnal schedule. So,
yeah. And some of the people that I do podcasts with are in the UK, or one guy I was going to do one with is in Texas, and it's like he doesn't have power or water, so he's like, "Yeah, this is not a priority." I'm like, "No, dude, you do what you got to do. When everything gets straightened out, we'll reschedule." I felt bad, but it's like I line this stuff up, and then life happens, and it gets canceled, and it's like, you know, it
if it
just
makes
means
you
nothing.
feel better, I cancel playing Magic on stream frequently. And that only takes me and sitting down to play a game.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being willing to come on, even though I had to reschedule a few times.
Oh
It
no,
was very
totally. This has been a
nice
lot of
talking,
fun.
and hopefully you'll be willing to come back, and then we can talk some more and
Definitely.
dive in even a little bit deeper into some different species of tarantulas and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I'd love that. Maybe I can even set up down in my tarantula room so we can actually look at some stuff,
Yeah, that
or
would be
just bring
very
them
cool.
downstairs, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically this is a podcast, so it's a little difficult for people listening when we're showing
Yeah,
stuff. But
true. But I mean,
yeah,
we do have the video format that we're both looking at, and
we definitely do.
I'm
And
recording
that's
for
the
my
weird
YouTube.
thing about doing this podcast like this, because I spend most of the time working on the video, setting up the cameras and lights and all this kind of stuff, and then put it out there. And like 2/3 of the people that that consume the content are just listening.
Yeah.
It's mainly just downloads. People listen to the audio version. Just a small sliver of that are people that are. So it's like, why am I even working with a camera? Why do I even put this effort into it?
I'm a paid subscriber to a news podcast,
Yeah,
and they've got a whole channel. They do live streaming video, and like most people consume the video, and
yeah.
I listen to the podcast, and like it drives me nuts when they put up a video clip with no audio and like don't tell me what's happening. And it's like, come on, guys, someone's not watching the video.
It's very wild.
So yeah,
But
mixed media is a thing.
yeah, definitely. But there are enough people that are watching it on YouTube. It makes it definitely worth the effort, I suppose. I'm sure the people watching it right now are like, "Hey, I like this. Don't stop doing this."
Hopefully, we both
But
get some views from it since I'm putting it up on mine as well.
definitely. So if you're interested, definitely check out Jade. She's over on Sky Spider. That's SKYE Spider on YouTube. She's on Twitch. I assume you're also on like Instagram.
Yeah,
Where,
yeah, I'm
where
on pretty much everything, and it's always Sky Spider.
are you on
And
Twitter?
Sky is spelled weird because it's my middle name. I'm literally a Jedi. I'm Jade Skywalker.
I saw that. You sent me the message. I was like, I don't know who she is, but she's a Jedi, so she's definitely gonna be on the podcast.
Totally a
The
Jedi.
more I learned about you, I was like, all right, yeah, this would be a very interesting conversation.
And
Uh,
ironically, none of my tattoos are Star Wars related, even though most of my body's covered. People
so
watching the
you-
video have seen my face and neck tattoos through this whole thing.
yeah. um, So your YouTube channel is, you got spider content, that's the word, as well as Magic the Gathering and things of that nature.
That's pretty much it.
Oh,
If I get interested and start working on music again, I'll post music videos up sometimes. But with my hand out of commission, I hardly ever get around to writing anymore.
I understand. And we met on Facebook in one of those tarantula groups. So, she's everywhere. if you're on Facebook and you're in a tarantula group, keep an eye out for Jane
I don't
Schuyler.
accept a ton of friend requests on Facebook, but you will see me in the tarantula groups pretty frequently.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
like sharing pictures. I'm a dork.
Very cool.
Like I'm literally a dork if you're looking on camera,
Very
and a
cool.
nerd.
A dork and a nerd.
The only knuckle dusters I felt qualified to have.
I can definitely relate to that. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I really hope that we can get
Yeah,
you
my
on
pleasure.
again later. Everybody go check her out. If you're watching the video, I've got her screen names and all that on the information there at the bottom of the screen, and I will link all of those to her YouTube channel and everything like that in the description down below the video version. But thank you so much, Sky Spider. Such a cool name. I appreciate
Thank you.
having you on. I look forward to having you on again in the future.
Yeah, it was a
I-
pleasure. I enjoyed the crap out of this.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I upload new podcasts every Thursday. Hopefully, we'll try to be a lot better on that. Thank you everybody for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. And yeah, I feel like I'm really bad at the outros on these things. I really got to work at it. So that'll just be the thing. And that's just my thing. I'm really bad at outros. So thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next week. Goodbye. All right.